From Urban Everyday UK, welcome to A Day in a Life. I'm Joe Kwaku, and behind every face, there is a story waiting to be told. Join us as we explore the diverse tapestry of lives across the UK. From bustling cities to quiet corners, we celebrate the ordinary moments that make life extraordinary. This is A Day in a Life.
From Urban Everyday UK, welcome to A Day in a Life, where we celebrate the unique stories of everyday people. And today we're honored to have Marleyna. Welcome, Marleyna.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. We're thrilled to have you. And if you could start by sharing your unique academic journey from neuroscience to biomedical science and what prompted this interdisciplinary path. But before then, these series are dedicated towards the International Women's Month, right? We know the whole of March is dedicated to women. So we're dedicating our conversations in March to women and the accomplishments and the things that they are doing. So on this note, we are honored to have an outstanding lady, Marleyna, who is into STEM. I'm more of an art person. So like when I see people doing a lot of STEM subjects like technology, neuroscience, biomedical engineering, I'm fascinated. So would like to know a lot more about what you do. And so if you could let us know how you got into this journey, academic journey from neuroscience to biomedical science and what prompted that disciplinary path.
So hello everyone, my name is Marleyna. I am currently a master's student and I'm studying biomedical science and I specialize in hematology and transfusion. The reason why I got into STEM, so first of all, I studied neuroscience as a bachelor's. And the reason why I studied that was because I was interested in finding out why certain students could retain information and then bring it out in an exam and why other students struggled with that. So that was something that kind of pushed me into studying the brain. And I did my GCSEs, I did my A-levels. And then I went first into psychology and neuroscience, but I realized afterwards I wasn't as passionate about psychology as I was about neuroscience. So I decided to fully go into just plain neuroscience. So I studied that and I was very interested in learning and memory. So how people just retain information and how they learn was what I was interested in. I wanted to see how connections were made, so how the neurons connected, where they stored all the information. That was something I was interested in. I graduated in neuroscience. I realized that I really enjoyed working in a lab. So I wanted to now do something else that will allow me to work in the lab more, because I feel like as a neuroscientist, you have to maybe go and do a master's or a PhD. I think mostly like a PhD before they really allow you to work in the lab. I think it's quite hard to find opportunities where you just can use your bachelor or your master's. So I wanted to find another topic or subject that would allow me to work in the lab. So I decided to choose biomedical science because I saw other people who are biomedical scientists, they were in labs. And I realized that what they were teaching, a lot of the techniques and topics they were teaching were quite beneficial in the lab. For example, like cell culture, which is something you learn in biomedical science. You can learn it in neuroscience, but not so much. So that was one of the reasons why I chose biomedical science as a master's. And hematology and transfusion, I think out of all the options that they had, it seemed the most interesting to me. So I just went along and chose that one. So that's my
Wow,
background.
interesting. Giving me some more technical terms. Hematology that you said, hematology and transfusion. All right, so
Yes.
from what I get from what you're saying, that you were drawn to biomedical sciences because of the labs. It was one of the reasons. It's interesting. So your curiosity about the human brain drew you into neuroscience. And initially you had the option of, or you were drawn to both psychology and then neuroscience. But then after exploring these two subjects, you felt that neuroscience takes you a bit more deeper into this exploration of the human brain, the neurons and how they store information, recall ability and all of that. But that's actually a very interesting area to look into. I don't know if you're into psychology. I have both a first degree in psychology and a second degree in social psychology. So I'm very familiar with these as well, but maybe not as, because I didn't specialize in neuroscience or neuropsychology. I did more of social psychology. Yeah. So I may not have said deep insight into the neuro aspect of it, but it's good to see that this was what drew you into this space. And then transitioning from there into biomedical sciences. Interesting. Nice.
Yes.
Because you mentioned something about cell culture. I'm a layperson, so I may not be
Mhm.
able to explain. So there are a lot of people maybe listening to us who may not have a clue what cell culture is or what even, I think transfusion you are referring to when you go to the
Mm.
transferring blood from one person to the other and all those
Yeah.
things, or taking blood from somebody and all of that.
So deal with
Dermatology
that.
has to do with skin. Please help us
Let
understand it better.
let me help you. So I'll just talk a bit about just neuroscience a bit and then biomedical science. Then I'll explain a bit more about the hematology and transfusion. And
Mm.
then I will explain a few topics. I'll list them. I might not explain it fully in detail, but I'll just list some of the stuff that you'll do in the lab.
Just
Touch upon it. So neuroscience really is the study of the brain, but it looks mostly at like the nervous system, looks at your spinal cord as well, your peripheral nerves, and it just really explores how neurons communicate and how the brain kind of controls behavior. And also, you can also look at neurological disorders, how they develop as well. That's another thing. And you can look at maybe techniques used in the lab in order to
mm.
research this. So you'll see a lot of neuroscientists, maybe they'll be researching Alzheimer's disease or maybe looking at learning and memory. That's one topic they can look at. Mostly they like to look at Alzheimer's disease, maybe different diseases that you can get. A lot of people look at autism, so many other stuff people look at, but that's kind of neuroscience in a nutshell. So biomedical science is we kind of focus on also looking at diseases and their causes and how to diagnose them. And we also look at treatment. So it's kind of like biology and medicine combined in one. And there's many different biological sectors you can go into. So there is microbiology, which is also under biomedical science. There's immunology, and there's also a sector you can look at tissue. I've forgotten the name though. But and there's also hematology and transfusion. So hematology is a study of blood. So blood forming organs, blood related diseases. So it can be sickle cell, it can be leukemia. So we
Mm.
look at that, and you can be looking at clotting disorders. So all the stuff that affects the blood, how it's formed, any diseases, that's what hematology is looking at. Now, transfusion is dealing with obviously blood transfusion, so how blood is
Mm.
transferred, blood banking, compatibility testings, which bloods are compatible with each other and stuff like that. It also looks at the trauma, blood donation processing, and stuff like that as well. So that's what they are in a nutshell. And different techniques that you'll use. So in biomedical science so far is you'll use PCR, there's cell culture. So you'll do a lot of stuff like that. There's something called, and
Fish.
you're looking at different genes and stuff using fish. There are so many
Mm.
different. I'm trying to think of some
Interesting. It sounds interesting, Marleyna.
in a
You're
nutshell.
taking us into your world, and we really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So both neuroscience and biological sciences are challenging and often mentioned. They're often perceived as male-dominated fields, right? So what have been some of the specific challenges you faced as a woman navigating these disciplines? Has there been any challenges that you faced as a woman navigating these disciplines?
I'll start with neuroscience. I was quite lucky that where I was studying, it was, I think, one of the first universities in the UK to actually teach neuroscience. So I
Mm.
was very lucky as well to be able to see female neuroscientists where I was studying. A lot of them were teaching me, and a lot of them had gone to PhD levels and they'd written articles. So it was nice to see that. I think there were a lot more male, but okay, but it was nice to see that. So I think I didn't really feel like, oh, neuroscience is very male dominated. But afterwards, I grew to know it's quite male dominated. But there are still a lot of female scientists. I was very lucky while doing that. I met a lady called Elizabeth, and she's also a female neuroscientist. She runs an organization called Women in Neuroscience, which I joined, and I was their graphic content creator. So I was making graphics for them for their Instagram page. And that allowed me to see so many other female neuroscientists. Because sometimes I think when you Google, you might not get a lot, but just meeting her and meeting other women who were so passionate about neuroscience was a very big deal. So we were spreading information about neuroscience and trying to empower other young women or girls who might not know about the study of neuroscience to take an interest in it and say, there's a space for you in this field. So that was one thing that's breaking barriers. And that was something that I used to combat the challenges I felt like of just being like a female in neuroscience. And for biomedical science, I feel like there's quite a few women in biomedical science. So far, I've seen in my class, I think there's more females than males. And I think that
Oh, that's
also
great.
helps me as well. But I haven't really felt any barriers in both. I think I've been very lucky to be around women in both subjects. So I haven't really faced much barriers yet.
I think that's great to know, actually, because maybe, for example, in the UK, this is what we experience, which is really good. But the experience may be different in other parts of the world. It's good to know that this is the experience that we're having here. And I sense a bit of an activist in you. I'm picking it from your vibes. So you're saying the work you did with Elizabeth. So Elizabeth was a mentor or somebody you drew some strength and inspiration from as you
Yeah.
studied neuroscience.
I think that as well. I think she's someone, we call her Lizzie. She's someone who saw the problem and found a solution to it. And because I was just thinking, I don't think there's much women in neuroscience, but I didn't really take the initiative. I was like, okay, maybe when I'm working in the lab, maybe then I can promote neuroscience more. But she is currently doing her PhD. I think she's nearly finishing it. But she still, straight away, she saw the issue and decided that she's going to do something about it and involved other women as well, other neuroscientists, which is amazing. So I guess I do have a little activist in me, but I think I'm on the quieter side. I do like the promotion and the stuff and the
That's
support
great.
system.
And that's the engine that gets activism going, isn't it? Because we're in a digital age. So thanks for sharing. And Liz, I'm sure when you should send a link to watch this. Shout outs to you, Lindsay. Shout outs to Lindsay. All right. So thanks for sharing these as well. Did you say that you've experienced any instances of bias or discrimination in this space over the years? And how did you handle them? Has there been any instance?
Yes, I think maybe there was maybe 6 or lower Black neuroscience students where I was studying. And I don't know if that's mainly because it's maybe a predominantly white uni, but there weren't a lot of us. So a lot of times when we were doing lab work, we look for maybe a Black person in the class and we'll just go together for a course. If we have any projects or anything, we'll be together. I think when I first joined, some lecturers weren't very understanding. I think people forget that we've just joined uni. We don't know much of the equipment and stuff. So I remember I had one experience and I think I was asking for help and about how to use this machine. I'd never heard of this machine before. And I remember the teacher, he was like, the lecturer, he wasn't very nice about it. He was a bit upset, but he was like, oh, you should know this. I touched the button. He's like, no, you don't. This is not what you do. So it's making little comments. And I never took it to heart because I was like, I'm not going to know all of this. So I brushed it over. I was like, you're not why I'm here anyway. So there's been stuff like that. It wasn't too bad. But I remember my most recent one, I was in my master. I think I did my first lab. So a lot of the equipment, they look a bit different than the ones in neuroscience. And just in general, sometimes there's something called a bathtub kind of thing. And it's where like maybe you put cells or stuff or liquids just to warm up a bit so that it has a reaction. And some of these look very different. They all don't look the same. And that's an example. But the machine, I can't remember the name, but there was a machine that I was supposed to use. And I asked this woman, oh, I'm looking for this machine. And she was like, what do you need it for? What's the temperature that you have to? What temperature do you need to put your cell in? How would I phrase this? So I had to put the cell in the bath, I believe. And she was like, what temperature does it need to be? And I was like to her, oh, like, it's okay. I just want to know what it looks like. And she told me again, what temperature does it need to be? And I was like, oh, it says it has to be, I think it was room temperature. And she kind of looked at me like, I was like, oh, I can just leave it on the side to leave it. But the look that she gave me and the way she spoke to me, felt like, I felt
some of these are subtle, innit?
Sometimes because it's your first time in a lab, you make silly mistakes. I was just thinking, I just wanted to find a machine. I knew I didn't really care about the temperature. I just wanted to know what instruments I was using at the time. But because she'd asked me the question, I just wanted to know what temperature it was. And I told her the temperature and she made me feel like that. So I remember afterwards, I spoke to some other friends about it and they said they also had some experiences like that. And a lot of them spoke up about it. But I felt like I don't want to be the troublemaker in my first lesson. But I remember afterwards that we had a break and I went and told my lecturer, if I experience this again, I'm not coming back to your lecture, to your lab, because I'm paying a lot of money to come and study. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to know every single equipment. And I remember he apologized and he went and told her anyway about it. But I realized by speaking up at that time, like obviously going to complain afterwards to my lecturer, she became much nicer the next labs we had, especially to me. So I was quite happy I spoke up about that. But that was kind of a discrimination I had. A lot of times there's not people like you in the lab, and a lot of times you'll be taken. I think science in general, people think that you have to know everything, which is what I felt. I felt like everybody has this kind of pompous attitude sometimes. You should know a lot of information, but it's not true. You're here to learn, so it's okay to make mistakes. And I think for me, I've just brushed them over because I know why I'm there and I know what I want to get out of it. And I've realized that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay not to know everything. And we're all human. So I think that's what I can say on that.
Just saying these are really powerful phrases that you've just shared now, and the experience in itself is it's okay to make mistakes. We're all here to learn. Like this phrase we should know. We're here to learn. So and what you said about the pompous attitude, and I think it's something which probably makes the perceived dominance of male in this STEM space, because that kind of dominance of that attitude of I know or I should know, that kind of thing. It's there. And so it can be also intimidating sometimes, experienced and shared. And it was good you were able to stand up or to speak up in a way through your lecturer, and eventually the whole dynamic change. So I feel these experiences are worth sharing because there could be someone out there who's experienced something similar and wouldn't know how to go around it. So having shared your experience, you've empowered somebody to know how to go around such circumstances. Thanks for sharing.
I want to add that, honestly, I'm kind of glad that I've spoken about the experience, and I'm kind of glad that I told the lecturer afterwards, because I'm now thinking back to even some of the other labs I've done in masters. A lot of students come from overseas and they don't know how to use a lot of the
gadgets, the equipment.
They don't know how to use it, so they will come and ask me, "Oh, how do I use it?" And I'll show them. So I think once again, it's just very important. Maybe I always say this because we're in like professional setting, so I can't really scream. The first thought was like, I just want to tell her about herself. But I said, no, because it's a professional setting, let me digest it first and then maybe go and tell the lecturer, which I did afterwards. But it's very important to speak up, because I was saying it ended up helping other students because she also had treated them in that way as well. Afterwards, me and the students spoke about it and we're like, yeah, you did this to me, oh, you treated me like this. But it's important to tell somebody, because then afterwards, as you can see, her behavior changed. She's not 100% nice, but she's much better than the first time. So I think that's the importance of it.
It's actually good. But shouldn't there be, let's say, a form of orientation for first timers or a lab session to expose students to these gadgets or equipment? I guess that should be a standard practice, or maybe is it like a redundant thing to think? I'm not sure, but
I've had it once in the masters, but that was a different module. But then afterwards, they ask us at the beginning, have you been into a lab? You go, yes, they go. And especially because we're master's students, they kind of think
you should know,
do everything, which is not always the case, because some people, they don't go into a lab. They just learn the theoretical part of it. They don't do the practical. So I was very lucky that for one of my modules, for majority of my modules in my bachelor's, I was in the lab, not as much, but I was in the lab. So I knew this is a pipette. This is how you use it, because some of them, the pipette will sometimes say 1,000 microliters, but there will be another pipette that has a similar number, and it's just very confusing sometimes. Even you might use that one and it will give you like a lot, it will dispense a lot of liquid, and you realize that's the wrong one. Let me try this method and use it. So a lot of them are very confusing. So just being able to speak up about it, because not a lot of students know. So speaking up about it and saying, I'm in trouble, I need help, is okay. You should always ask for help. But a lot of times they won't teach you. A lot of times.
It's good. So guys, it's good to ask for help. We're learning this from Marleyna today. What are some of the stereotypes or misconceptions about women in interdisciplinary STEM, like yourself, that you would like to challenge? Are there any stereotypes or misconceptions about women in interdisciplinary STEM fields that you've heard of or you've? There's usually this perception that women in STEM are not romantic, or they're rigid or not romantic. I don't know. Maybe that's a misconception or a stereotype. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I think we are romantic. I think because being in the Women in Neuroscience organization, and I'm in another organization called STEM as well, which looks at women in STEM. We do little maybe graphics to kind of encourage people to do stuff on Valentine's Day and stuff, maybe connected to STEM. So
I see. There's a love angle in there.
Yeah, forget that. It's just one aspect of a person, like job, career or it's just one aspect. The person as a whole is very different. I think there's so many different people in science. So when you go in, you see so many different characters. You see people who are smart, people who are just funny, people who you see so many people. So yeah, just honestly, when you go, you will see so many different things. I saw so many people. I was like, wow, I would never imagine you to be doing neuroscience. And I was like, wow, it just kind of opened my eyes again to seeing such a big subject, and there are so many people interested in it. So
that's it. So that's the thing with stereotypes, because it's like create a box and want to fix everybody in there like that. But like you're really saying, it's very like have different attitudes, different temperaments, and all different people, different cultures, and backgrounds, and all these people are passionate about science, and then you all find yourself in this space. Yeah, some of these stereotypes and misconceptions, yeah, don't right.
I think it's just about spreading knowledge and information about it. That's the most important. I think that's why these two organizations are doing that. Because sometimes I'll tell people, I don't know what type of subject my face, like it looks like I would study. Look at your face and say, okay, I think you study law or something. But for me, every time I talk, wow, this is what I'm studying, they'll go like, oh, maybe they don't expect that I would study
But
this.
if you look at my face, what am I studying?
Maybe music.
Nailed that. I think you nailed that, actually.
Yeah, I won't lie, did you?
How does your experience as like being a young Black woman impact your work in these fields? I think we've touched a bit on the dynamic in the classroom, at your lab, as you mentioned, but you mentioned there were just about 6 of you, color in that whole year group, that particular labs. Yeah. How does your experience of being a young Black woman impact your work in these fields? Do you feel there is any your race or your ethnic identity in a way impacts or influences your work in this field in any way?
I had one experience. I was doing neuroscience as well, and I remember I was asking this woman a question. I think we had to collect like if it was like a plant they wanted us to collect. Like she had them already separated, and she wanted us to collect like a bit of the plant sample and to the microscope that we were using and have a look at it. And I remember I asked this woman a question, and I think because she was talking to me, so I was like to her, "Oh, sorry, were you talking to me?" And she kind of response she gave me twice. She gave me that response, but I saw her talking to other people nicely. I tried not to think of that. I just kind of off, and luckily I never had her again. But sometimes I don't really look at it. I think I know that it like real stuff exists, but I always try and like I'm gonna let it hinder me. Like I'm gonna stop me from getting to where I want to be. A lot of spaces I've gone into where I've been like the only Black person or just a small number, I don't let it affect me as much. I think if you want to go and what you want to do, don't let anything stop you. I think I'm someone who perseveres a lot. Like someone was telling me, you're somebody, if you want to do something, you'll do it. So I feel like maybe I wouldn't even say it upset me that much, but if it just upset for one day, next day just continue. Because there are always, for this woman who wasn't very nice to me, there's like 5 other teachers who were amazing to me, who jokes with me or leave me a certain way, and one of my race most of the time. A lot of times in my neuroscience, there was nobody of my race that was teaching me. I'm quite lucky in biomedical science now that I have a teacher, I believe he's from Nigeria, and my other teacher is, but my other, the neuroscience, they were all, majority of them were just white. I think there was maybe one that was a person of color. So don't let it hinder you. If you want to do something, go and do it. Yeah, there's one way is closed. There's always another way you to get to that spot that you want to, thing that you want to study or that job you want to do. Don't let race hinder you, basically.
Well said, Marleyna. Yeah, stuff. And remember, these hints of racism, sometimes they are very subtle. I did my second postgraduate degree in the University of Cape Town. And majority, there are a lot of whites there. Yeah.
Right.
So, one of lecturers was white. Most of our lecturers were actually white, actually. And there was this particular course that we were doing. We're on the field, and it was an outdoor. So I was doing urban studies at the time, and we're on a project. We're out and about. I'm a very excited person. I'm a bubbly person. Yeah, so this lecturer is like, for some reason, she was picking on me, and statement that she feels that I miss youthful days, and so because of that, I'm behaving like I'm a boy or something. They said it I mean, whilst we were in a group, so with my other colleagues and all of that. So she said it, and then I mean, all of a sudden I just became quiet. Don't know how to respond to these
Yeah.
attacks.
Mm.
Quite when it comes to some things, but all of a sudden I just became
Yeah.
quiet. I know how to respond to that. And fortunately, a colleague of mine just spoke. She was like, "No, that's how he is."
Mm.
She just took me and just spoke up that
Mhm.
no, she's known me for a while because we've done the first semester. Yeah, we've been, I think, about 2 months or so before that incident. So she was like, no, she's known me for a while, and that's how I am. So yeah, so she spoke to me. And yeah, it's, those like, if you've no experience, you're not really, it's not easy to talk about it. So I really appreciate you being able to share these and
Mm.
yeah, even sharing it now, it's just bringing the whole memory back and how I felt in that space and that time.
Yeah.
So tough issues faced, but they are worth speaking about, and it helps us to overcome them. And like you said, I mean, they show us from pushing into certain spaces and pushing ourselves into certain spaces and doing what we want to do, achieving heights that we want to achieve. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
to
That,
ship that in.
it reminded me of another story I had. This wasn't, it was more racism, but it was like a discrimination or barrier, but I'll put it out there and see what people think.
Mm,
So I don't know if I've told you, but I've always, after my bachelor's, I was planning to go and do graduate medicine. I remember somebody told, I think one of the teachers, lecturers told me that I should go to this person in the university because he deals with all the people who want to go and study graduate medicine or, just general after they do
mm.
their bachelor's. So I went to this person and the universities he was kind of pointing me to was like, these low universities, the universities low, but the universities are, and he was like, oh,
Mm,
you should go to this one because they have like a quota accepting a lot of black students. You should go to this one because of this. And I was like, okay. So then he wanted to do the work because when you do medicine, you have to have like or university general, you have to have like a personal and you have to collect all the information and
yeah,
document. So he just didn't want to do the work. So he kept pushing me to maybe doing it next year. And I was like, okay. So I said to him, oh, the thing was even, yeah, the deadline wasn't that close. I think it was like a month, write like a small statement. So I remember he said to me, like he said, I don't know if he didn't realize that I was sat there in front of him, but he was like, oh, I'm going to have to do another personal statement. Like he was very upset about it. And then he said to me, oh, maybe the
goodness.
woman across was like, she was dealing with students as well. So he said, oh, maybe you can ask her or you can tell her that, the personal, she can just sign it off as herself. And then he goes to me, oh, no,
Mm,
no, no, do that because it won't be good. And he says, oh, maybe you can ask her. And then he goes to himself. He tells me that for him, I should write the personal statement myself. And then he will sign it off because he already has so many stuff to do.
that's on his desk.
And he kind of, me off. And I was a bit disappointed because I was like, which student writes that? But I don't even know how to write like a personal stuff. Somebody wants to do medicine. You've done this for years. So he didn't even want to help me. So I was a bit discouraged and I said, you know what, let me do it next year. Because I remember I had another teacher who's never
So
done it
maybe
before.
you're actually talking about, is it the recommendation? I think you're speaking about
Recommendation
not the
letter, yeah.
personal
That's
statement.
it.
Yeah, the
Personal,
recommendation.
yeah,
What they do.
recommendation letter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, I would do it. She'd never done it before, but she was like, I'd love to do it for you. And I remember I was so discouraged. I was like, I had so much to do. I had exams coming up. I had the entrance exam for meds coming up. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just do it next year because I can't come and do another recommendation letter. Like,
Mm,
it's too much. And I remember I said
yeah.
straight away, like, you were like, oh, that's a great choice. Yeah, come and see next year. And I was like, okay. I didn't go see him next year. I kind of mastered. So, but you, stuff like that. When you were talking about like barriers, and I just remembered
Mm.
this was another one that
The
happened.
condescending nature, trying to,
Yeah,
yeah,
much work.
and
Yeah,
suggesting lower aura.
yeah, lower option. Yeah, and yeah, these are the ones that they have the quota. They have to accept the black students. And I was like, okay. I
Interesting.
was a bit
Sectional.
surprised
Sorry,
even.
guys.
Yeah, but I already even he was swearing in the meeting as well some of the time. He's not taking me seriously, is he? So
Mm.
yeah, I just went back to him afterwards. But yeah, I still keep in with the other tutor, my lecturer that was willing to do it, and
Willing
I
to,
just
yeah.
I said to myself, maybe it was the right time. Maybe let me take some time, finish my bachelor's, maybe do something else, and then come and do medicine afterwards. So
But
it's
you'd
still
been
my
amazed that if you had met an encouraging one, you probably would have gone to
mm,
medicine. Yeah. So sometimes,
mm,
I don't know, I don't want to use a word for that.
yeah.
Yeah, but I place myself in a good space. Yeah, so good. Yeah.
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
mm.
thanks for this
Yeah.
deeply personal stories. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, what are the women who have inspired you in your journey? Particularly those across disciplines. I know you probably have drawn, you mentioned is it yeah, Lindsay,
yeah.
yeah. Are there any particular ones also who have inspired you in this journey of being in interdisciplinary STEM?
My friend, her name is Donna. I hope she's gonna come on this podcast as well.
Yeah, we're hoping
Thank
to
you.
have Donna.
Available. Yeah. Donna is somebody, yeah. She just take no for an answer, I guess. She is doing, she's an that's a much more male dominated sector, and she has so many stories about how she's been treated badly. So hopefully she'll
Mm,
come on and tell more of her story. But she's another person that inspires me. Her and her sister, they both inspire me so much because the amount of barriers they're breaking, they're getting so many awards. Yeah, it was to see. And like Donna is like your typical scientist. Like she loves makeup. She's always, very fashionista. So for me, I was like, that's
okay,
nice.
you
Yeah, it
know,
was that. Yeah, and I don't think there was much scientists around me. So when I kind of got to these women who were doing, they were black, and it was just very empowering and inspiring. I was like, there's more of us in STEM, which is nice. So yeah, I think
great.
Donna and her sister.
So there's definitely a place for inspiration and seeing people like you in certain spaces in certain rooms inspires us to
Yeah.
also push ourselves. Yeah, and it's a powerful thing. It is. Yeah.
Hmm.
What you do you think there are any qualities that are essential for women to succeed in into those fields? I mean, from what you said so far, like one thing I've picked from you, like you said, have to do not take no for an answer. You have to be determined to get it. But do you feel that there
Mm-hmm.
are other qualities that are essential for women in particular, since we are focusing on women, to succeed in this field of interdisciplinary STEM?
That's just perseverance, just
Mm,
towards what you want. There's always a space for you in that sector. Yeah, no domain or sector is too full. There's always room for people.
mm,
And another one is just embrace that you're a woman. These places need women. There
mm.
are maybe women know more than men. So I think it's just the most important one. Just continue going, continue. I feel like if you don't have that, a lot of people will just they'll have like one mishap and they'll say, okay, I'm not this anymore. Like they'll have maybe five and they're like, oh yeah, I'm not this anymore. I don't think this is right for me. But if you persevere, the amount, even of these mishaps, but the amount of opportunities you gain, like alongside it, just amazing. And if a lot of people might need you, there's you might discover that will benefit so many people, but we won't be able to know because you decided, you're going to straight away or you're going to give up after maybe two. So yeah, perseverance, I think, is just the main and big one.
Perseverance. A lot of
Yeah.
people might need you, so don't give up.
Yeah, a lot of
Wow.
people might need.
Yeah, yeah. And I spoke about embracing yourself as a woman. I think it's a very
Mm,
powerful phrase there. Just acknowledge that you're a woman in this space and embrace it. Um, wow. So what advice you give to young girls interested in pursuing careers that bridge multiple scientific disciplines? You've spoken of perseverance. We've spoken of having a kind of somebody and maybe there's a young lady out there who is about going into these spaces or these fields, and they daunting. I mean, if you about it, and like in all this equipment and things like that, you're using big technologies, and and you have all these things in your head. Not that you can't, but you can. But
mm,
like sometimes just the whole idea of being in this space is
mm.
intimidating and frightening. So if there's a young girl or a young lady out there who is aspiring to go into this field, what would be your advice for that person?
I think for me, I would just say, and I would say, no matter what you're doing now, whether if you feel like you're not achieving greatly at GCSEs or A level, or if you feel like, maybe I have to do this topic, or maybe my background hinders me from doing this topic, just go and do it. I think the thing people don't know about science is that there are so many opportunities. And that's one thing I didn't even with the science. I think a lot of times I was always worried afterwards, can I get another job if I don't want to work in science? There are so many job opportunities you can get with your science. So definitely come into science. Yeah, don't be honestly. I think even me sometimes, like I remember first biomedical science, I was like, oh, especially with the way the teacher was explaining it. Like we have a Nigerian, he was like, oh, if you don't revise for this exam, man, the paper is gonna show you. And all of us now were getting really scared because we're like, oh, if I do well, this is gonna happen. But when you get in there, you realize it's not as bad as you thought it was, and it's really enjoyable. So don't allow anybody to hinder you. If you want to do it, just go and do it. Go and see it for yourself and then make the decision. If you decide afterwards you don't want to do it, you're always able to change. Your path away. You don't follow just one straight path. You can always take another route. You say, okay, I don't want to do this subject anymore. Let me change it. Or I don't want to do this subject anymore. Let me change it. So it's do that. Sometimes because of your age or you should just stick to one thing. No, go and do whatever you want to do, because in the end you might regret it, and that's I think the worst thing. So definitely do what you want to do, and happy doing it. Always look at the bright side of stuff. Don't allow your currency or an issue you think may arise to stop you from doing stuff. There are always solutions to problems, so make sure you enjoy it, and there's always help. If one person doesn't help you, go to another person, and you never look stupid asking a question. Never think you look silly or you look stupid. Ask a question, especially at uni, because they always say you're paying for it. So definitely ask questions, because you never know. Somebody else might have needed that answer too, but they were just too ashamed to ask. And you never know, you could even do something better, bigger, better with that answer that you received. So definitely, yeah, just do it, I guess. Taking from my
Yeah,
head.
good stuff. To be a motivational speaker, maybe you are.
Maybe.
No, that's deep. Yeah, I mean, going to science already.
Yes.
Yeah. So some things that were really touching. One of the things that stood out to me is that I'm not. Yeah, some people we talk ourselves out of things. Like I'm not enough, and I think it's a very common thing that lots of people do. Talking ourselves out of things. I'm not smart enough, or maybe sometimes just taking somebody's word for it. And you addressed it. You said, go see it for yourself and make a decision for yourself. Sometimes comments or suggest things that make you feel like feel like something I cannot do. But you have to just take that step and, just experience it for yourself. And like you rightly said, there are various things, not a straight path. There are places you could navigate through
Yeah.
within the same big scientific space. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're closer to the end of the session. What are your aspirations? I'm coming back to you, Marleyna. What are your aspirations for the future? And how do you hope to leverage your interdisciplinary to make an impact? What impact do you hope to make in your field?
Yeah, so I like to, after I finish my master's, I would like to work for a bit, work in the lab, gain some more
Make some money.
experiences, and then hopefully I would like to go and do medicine, because I've always been very interested in neurosurgery. That's the end goal. I would like to go into neurosurgery. But yeah, I don't really. I say all these things, but right now I think I'm just enjoying where I'm at. I think the most important thing for me is just enjoying the moment I'm in. That's something I find very tough to do. I'm always thinking about the future, but I just want to enjoy what I'm doing. I don't mind what type of research I'm in, as long as it's benefiting people. And I'm always there. And as long as I can use all the stuff I've learned, I'm very happy to do it. But yeah, I would like to work in the lab for maybe 2 years, and then move on to medicine, and then afterwards, neurosurgeon.
That's beautiful. Well, we have our next Ben Carson coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming up now. What has been the most exciting or surprising discovery you've made your studies? sometimes you found interesting. And what has been the most rewarding aspect of your academic journey so far?
I think doing the masters, because I never, when you don't think, some people think that far, but for me, I didn't think I'd do a masters. I won't lie to you. I thought, yeah, okay, I'll go uni, but doing a master's, like, wow, I'm doing masters, I think,
And to a PhD.
yeah, but yeah, that was something I was like, wow, I never imagined. And I think I didn't realize, some of we limit ourselves a lot. I didn't, when I first took this master's, I was like, this is different from neuroscience. Am I going to be able to retain all the information and blah, blah, blah? I realized it's not as hard as I thought it was. And I think just it's amazing how the human brain is and how much information it can retain. And I was like, wow, I can't believe this. When I was in the class, when people would answer questions, because a lot of people, they work in the lab and then they come and do the masters, or they've studied it before. They would answer questions. I'll be like, oh, me sitting here not knowing anything. But afterwards, after it went by, I think towards the end of December, January, like the questions, they'd be like, yeah, I know this is the full count, or this is, you'll do this diagnosis and do this. And I was like, wow, I was like, I didn't know I'd be able to get it. Sometimes you don't see that far, but I was like, wow, I actually got here, which is amazing. So I think that's one of the things that, yeah, I could get this far, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. The sky is still the limit. You're still shining on. Yeah. Yeah. So great. We'll be the very top. So there's a lot of room up there for everybody. So keep pushing ourselves and we keep making our impact. I like one thing you said. I think you're driven by impact, so that you right now you're happy about the space in which you are, and you believe that, that you've learned and the skills that you've acquired, the ability to make impact with these actually is also one of the things that makes you happy. So yeah, I think it's something that's great. Yeah. Awesome. How do you balance your studies with other aspects of your life? Now I'm bringing it deeper into you. It's a day in your life after all, innit? So how do you balance?
Yeah. How to balance it? I think I started doing is like making a and writing what I'm gonna do each day. But I won't lie to you, I'm not amazing at balancing it. Sometimes I pay more attention to other stuff, and I'm like, oh wait, I should have been doing this too. So sometimes it can be tough, but I make sure I don't stress about it. I try my best not to stress about it. And I think planning. So using the calendar, planning what to do, when you want to do it by is a good thing as well. That's also been very helpful. And I also make sure not to take too much on, because I know myself, I can't do too many things at once. So I think maximum I'll take is 3 things I'll do. And then after those, once I finish that, then I can move on to the next 3 things I need to do. So yeah, just make sure you don't put too much on your plate as well. But yeah, I just make sure I have time for stuff. And I make sure I have time that I enjoy. I think that's the most important thing, because sometimes you can get lost in stuff that you're doing that you forget about yourself. I did that a lot until I was kind of reminded of it matter as well. So yeah, I'm sure you fit in for everything you want to do. And when you're organized, full work, you can start it sooner, and then you end up having time for other stuff that you need to do as well. And so yeah, I think me a lot with managing stuff. Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then message you want to share with our listeners about the power of pursuing passions that cross traditional boundaries. From what you shared with us so far, you've pushed yourself, you've explored that you didn't, for example, even with this master's degree, that was not something that you were thinking of doing, but you've pushed yourself into this as well. And sharing your aspirations, we're seeing bigger, So have anything to share with our listeners about the power of pursuing passions that cross traditional boundaries, pushing themselves beyond the immediate the limits that surround us?
I think you know you'll help, and you don't realize how much you help yourself too. When you do these things, you learn so much about yourself. I've learned so much about myself. I've learned I can achieve so much. I can do so much. You don't know how many opportunities there is. So by doing it, you see so many more opportunities, and helping out to teach other people about certain things you're doing. Like I'd be making graphics for these 2 organizations, but here I am doing graphics. So yeah, you learn much, and you help so many people. You help yourself, think, yeah, that's like about that. Yeah. It's very, you don't realize so many things that can come out of just maybe going into a certain subject or doing something. So many things come out of it, not just you studying or not just you working.
Yeah, just like podcast. It came out from my passion and my experience with the urban, and now to you, a
Yeah.
scientist. Yeah, so and thank you so much, Marleyna, for spending part of your valuable time with us and for sharing, in fact, deep, deep, deep insight. And I'm confident that our listeners are going to benefit from the things that you've shared. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Maybe you want to share something on socials or anything that you feel that people should check out. You did what you guys are doing with Donna or some of the organizations that you feel are empowering women and stuff like that.
A podcast. I hope people watch more because it's an incredible podcast and you learn so much. So people just continue to urban every day and following your socials as well because I've been watching it. It's really interesting. This is my first kind of like might not have been amazing, but it'll be next time. But yeah, I think just promote the other. So I've actually stepped down from the content creation that I was doing in Women in Neuroscience just to spend some more time on the other stuff I'm doing in my life. But I still want to shout them out because they're amazing and they're doing amazing stuff. So please do go and check out Women in Neuroscience UK. I think their Instagram handle and their X handle as well. And on LinkedIn as well, that's their handle. And System as well is very good. Are they System UK or just System? But yeah, System as well. Go and check them out as well. It's another organization for women in STEM, and they're doing their work, and you will learn so much from them as well.
Wow, what a session. No, I'm inspired. It's incredible. It's amazing. This is your first podcast, but you've been amazing. And we're so elated and excited to have had you on this podcast. Yeah. Happy that your first podcast experience was with us. Urban and a Day in a Life podcast. Yeah. Yeah. So much, Marleyna, for sharing your insightful perspective and inspiring story. So listeners, just keep tuning in, subscribe to our channel, and keep following us for more from Urban Everyday and A Day in a Life. So on that note, we want to say all the ladies out there, you're celebrated, you're special, and want you to know that we value you so much. And, keep into these breaking barriers and just be you. Cheers. Love. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to A Day in a Life from Urban Everyday UK. I'm your host, Dijo Kwaku. Every day is a story waiting to be written. Join us next time as we continue to explore the human experience. Subscribe to A Day in a Life for more inspiring stories and share this episode with someone whose story deserves to be heard.